Hey there, Careblazers. Welcome back to the place where we talk about everything dementia. Dr. Natalie here, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about what to do if your loved one blames you for all of their struggles. And it's in response to a comment I recently received under one of my YouTube videos. And it reads, "My biggest struggle is when my husband gets so angry because he has a feeling that I am the one creating his hurt of having dementia. And now he wants to go to the bank and change things. This really scares me." If this is something that you're struggling with, then stay tuned. And as always, if you are new to Careblazers TV and you want to join the family, just hit that subscribe button on your screen. It's totally free and you'll get weekly updates for dementia tips, support, and information. Now, if you remember from one of my previous videos on why your loved one with dementia tends to blame you for everything, it's not denial, it's something called anosognosia. And their brains literally no longer have the ability to fully understand their limits and what's going on. So what ends up happening is that they see you, the person who is trying to help them, keep them safe, do the things that they're no longer able to do. They see you as somebody getting in their way and preventing them from being independent. They don't understand that they truly need all that help that you're giving. So that starts to build resentment, anger, and they start to act out and do things like this Careblazer is describing, trying to go to the bank and take your name off of all the accounts. So I'll link to that video up above so that you can go check it out in case you want some more information on that. But before you click there, I'm going to go over and share 3 tips that you can do to try to minimize the chances that your loved one continues to blame you and sees you as the root of all their problems, and also how to keep that bank account safe from them making a change. Tip number 1, do not remind them they have dementia. Don't mention to them they have dementia. There is usually nothing good that will come from you constantly reminding your loved one that they have dementia. In most cases, reminding your loved one that they have dementia and that they can't do something because of their dementia usually just leads to them feeling angry or sad or mad or resentful and doesn't end up being a pretty situation. So instead of telling your loved one they can't do something because they have dementia, instead you want to offer a simple explanation or response followed by a quick distraction. I'm going to go over a couple of examples in a second, but I want you to keep in mind that these examples are to get the juices flowing for yourself so that you can come up with responses that are going to be best suited for your loved one. There are all kinds of different dementias, different severities of dementias, different personalities, and different situations. So take my examples as kind of a guide, but you're going to need to adjust them for your own situation. Now, let's say your loved one with moderate dementia wants to take the car for a ride, but they haven't had a license in quite a while and they're no longer safe to drive. Instead of saying, "No, honey, you have dementia and your license was taken away," which would then lead to anger, resentment, arguing, disagreement, you could instead say something like, "The car has been acting funny. I think there's a broken part. Let's wait for that to get fixed so we are safe." Or, "Billy's coming over later to borrow the car for something. Let's stick around and wait for his visit." Then immediately get involved in an activity. Or, "Actually, I could really use your help with these tools. I'm totally overwhelmed. Can you help me sort the different nails and bolts?" Then sit down with them and do the activity together. Now notice how none of the responses that I just gave as an example mention the word dementia or tell their loved one that they can't do what they want to do because of dementia. Try to avoid that at all costs. Instead, you want to think about your loved one's severity of dementia, what they're most likely to believe, get your creative juices flowing, and come up with a response that your loved one's most likely to believe. That's actually the hardest part of this whole exercise, is finding a way to respond that your loved one will accept and move on. Now, this way of responding to this difficult behavior is actually the ideal way to respond to many of dementia's difficult behaviors. Offer a short explanation or response followed by a distraction with the engagement in another activity. At all costs, if you don't remember anything, just avoid reminding your loved one that they cannot do something because they have dementia. That's going to add to a lot of the resentment that the Careblazer who wrote in is referring to. Now, I actually work with a Careblazer whose brother has mild dementia, and his brother often brings up wanting to drive. You know, he wants to get out of the place that he's living, be free, be independent, and go places. His brother, because it's still in the very mild stages, but he's unsafe to drive, he knows he has dementia, and he knows that the doctors have told him he can no longer drive due to safety concerns. So when his brother constantly brings up wanting to drive, what his brother does is acknowledge the emotion and the loss that's behind his comments. So this is tip number 2. Focus on the emotion and not so much the words. So instead of his brother saying, yeah, but the doctor told you have dementia, so you can't drive, which is really not going to do anything to make his brother feel better and could add to the resentment. Instead, the brother focuses on the feeling and says, it must be really hard to no longer be able to do something you've been doing most of your life. Talk to me about where you'd want to go if you were driving. Where would you drive to? What would you do? And then he takes note of the things that his brother is saying, like, I'd like to go to church, or I'd like to go to the store, or I'd like to go to the movies. And his brother focuses on finding ways to still get him to the places that are important to him. So tip number 2, focus on the emotion, not so much the literal words that your loved one is saying. Now, my third tip has more to do with the second part of this Careblazer statement, which is causing her a lot of fear. So it sounds like her loved one with dementia is at the point where he is so resentful of her that he is starting to go to the bank and try to make changes to their accounts because he doesn't really believe that he's having all the problems that his wife is saying. So my recommendation for everybody out there, actually, whether you have dementia or not, is to make sure you have your documents in order. So in this case, a financial power of attorney. So if you don't have if your loved one doesn't have a financial power of attorney at this point, it's a good idea to try to get that done by talking to an elder lawyer. So the financial power of attorney will basically name somebody that will be responsible for all the finances and managing the money and making big financial decisions when your loved one with dementia is no longer able to do that themselves. So the bank will need this kind of documentation so that this Careblazer could go and say, you know, please don't let my husband make any major changes to this bank account. They need to go through me. The bank is going to need to see some legal documentation for that. Now, it's important for me to mention, because there's so many misconceptions about power of attorneys out there, and maybe that's another video I can do, but just because somebody has a power of attorney, I should have a power of attorney, you should have a power of attorney, your loved one should have a power of attorney. Just because you have a power of attorney, whether it's for medical reasons or financial reasons, that does not give you the right to all of a sudden start making all the changes you want for your loved one. There has to be some sort of decision, which is usually from a medical professional, that says this person with dementia is at the point where they're no longer able to independently make their financial decisions, or they're no longer able to independently make their medical decisions. At that point, then the power of attorney goes into effect and you can start taking over, or whoever they identified as their power of attorney can start taking over using what they think their loved one would have wanted to have happen when they were functioning at their best. So that's a whole nother topic for another day. But in this Careblazer's case, I hope she has a financial power of attorney, and it sounds like maybe it could be at the point where that financial power of attorney could be in effect and she can start putting up some safeguards at her bank so that her husband can't make some pretty scary consequences. All right, Careblazers, I hope that this video has been helpful to you. However you respond to your loved one, I hope the one thing that you remember from this video is to not respond by reminding them they have dementia. Careblazers, do you experience a similar struggle of your loved one constantly blaming you or resenting you for not being able to do things? If so, leave a comment below and tell us how you handle those situations or how you plan to try to handle those situations differently to see if it can make a positive effect. Also, as a reminder, you can leave a question or comment under any of my videos or over on my Facebook page at Dementia Careblazers, and I will do my best to address them in a future video. Okay, Careblazers, until next week, bye.